today is like, Brandee, get it together. Okay. We're going to biohack you. So I'm so excited that you're here. Thanks so much for coming.
Thank you for having me. Can I tell you that these type of interviews are my favorite, and that's why I know this is going to be good.
Yeah. I talk about this a lot on my stories. I have a really hard time breaking certain habits, and I am terrible about working the second I wake up. I love working, right? And I have brain fog. I have all the things that we're going to talk about today, which I'm super excited about. I'm just like, how do you not do that? It's challenging because I love my work. I love my work so much that it doesn't feel exhausting to do that, but it does feel exhausting to try to be healthy. So tell us a little bit more about what you teach.
So the way I like to look at it is coming at it from a very holistic standpoint. And keep in mind, I've had my business since 2014. So I've been doing this a long time. It's pivoted obviously over the years, but I started as a personal trainer, and I used to very much think like exercise. That's what makes us feel our best. We should all do all the exercise, right? And then it wasn't until early 2020, and I'm trying to type out a newsletter, and I was like, I have nothing. Where's my brain? And what I really put one and one together here was like, whoa, it's the sleep. And so that's when I really got into the wearable tech, and I was like, I'm going to biohack my sleep live on Instagram over 3 months and showing exactly how I felt when I improved different parts of my sleep. And that's kind of how it's evolved into this health consulting practice where the whole purpose, let's eliminate brain fog or just chronic stress that we're not addressing as entrepreneurs because we're so used to living in fight or flight.
Ooh, okay. So can we talk about this brain fog thing for a minute? Because I will tell you, the way I've described it to my husband or even to my girls, I'm like, I feel like there's cobwebs in my brain, which, to be honest, actually makes me a little bit nervous because sometimes I'm like, does that mean it's like early onset Alzheimer's? So what are some of the things that we can look for to do to help prevent that?
Here's another way to think about it. You know, like if you were to go for a run, and then you went and you started running in sand, you can still do it, but it's really inefficient. That's what brain fog is to thinking. How many hours a day would you lose due to brain fog? Like, how much quicker could you get stuff done if our brain was sharp and clear? And that's why I love working with entrepreneurs, is because if we make that connection between our brain health and our energy and our productivity, that's where we can get some buy-in. Because as soon as we're like, wait a second, if it takes me 4 hours to get done what used to get 6, you have 2 hours. There's so many opportunities for that. But if we're going back to brain fog, understanding where it's coming from, it's looking at, are we getting high quality sleep? 2, what's going on with our blood sugar? The other one is, like we said, if stress has gone unchecked. And here's where I like to start. You start with your sleep. And here's why. It's free and you're doing it anyways. So let's make it a little bit better, right? And then when we can start gaining back that time during the day, like, you know how we talked about, like, well, what if it took you 4 hours instead of 6? What would you do with the 2 hours? That's where you start putting your work out. With that time you create, because you're not taking so long to do everything, right? And that's where you start to get that buy-in of like, oh, I would so much rather have a productive, efficient day than stay up late and watch 3 episodes of Netflix. And not that we rule that out completely, but it's about recognizing, okay, I don't want to, this is actually detracting from my life now, instead of something that just feels like it's just, you know, whatever. It's just TV. It's just Netflix. Sure. How's that affecting your brain?
Yeah, sleep would be the easiest thing to fix, right? But it's like you go all day and all you think about is, I'm so excited to go to bed tonight. And then you get in bed and you're like, I mean, it's the only time I've had to myself all day. And so you're like, I deserve this time. And so you either get on TikTok or Netflix. And I want to say, you will feel so much better tomorrow if you just go to sleep, you know?
Yeah, this is actually really common, what you're saying. And I remember so clearly the very first client that I had this discussion with. I remember saying to her, I was like, why do you think you need so much of that me time? And she's like, well, because I just want to feel like I had some downtime. I want to feel relaxed. And I was like, cool, what are you doing with your time? And she's like, well, I watched about 5 episodes of this show we're watching on Netflix. I was like, no judgment on Netflix. Did that make you feel relaxed? And she's like, no. So one of the things that I start to introduce at this point is maybe there's some room to bring some other stuff in. So let's just say you really like to write, or I love to read. And what if I just started splitting that time in half, where I got my Netflix episode in and then I went and read for half an hour. And you no longer need to spend 3 hours sitting there hoping Relax is going to show up after the next episode because it's not here yet. I think that's that kind of spiral we get stuck in. But what I love to look at is like, let's go 5 years out.
Yeah.
Let's go 10 years out. What does your brain and your health look like at that point? Like after neglecting it for that long, but then what good was all this business you did if you're fighting cancer or diabetes or you have dementia? Like it's this really interesting thing that I just like to bring that focus to is like, is what we're doing now sustainable?
What I would love to know is like, how do we figure out what our sleep cycle is like, and what's the ideal sleep cycle, or what are we looking for to do?
Yeah, this is one of my favorite things too. I was like, how are you sleeping? Because I always think like, I don't ask people how they're doing. I ask how they're sleeping. That's isn't that more telling?
So interesting. So interesting.
So this is the interesting thing is I get this answer. It's fine. The first thing I always like to start illustrating is this concept called sleep opportunity. So we think, hey, I'm in bed by 11. My alarm clock's going off at 6. Look at me. I got 7 hours of sleep last night, right?
That's me. I do that all the time.
So keep in mind that I have looked at data from Oura Rings for entrepreneurs for years now, many of them.
Okay.
The average entrepreneur spends between an hour and an hour and a half awake every night. So if you're in bed at 11 and waking up at 6, you're like, I've got 7 hours. Oh, but I'm not counting the hour and 20 that I was awake last night. Now it's 5 hours, 40 minutes. And your brain starts to do something called baseline resetting. You start to be like, this level of cognitive impairment, this feels normal. I'm fine. And you don't actually recognize how much your thinking is slowed down.
Okay. And is there a certain amount of sleep that you should get as an adult or an entrepreneur, or does it really depend on like each person?
So, I mean, if you just look for like guidelines, yeah, you're going to get the 7 to 9 hours of recommended sleep per night. But what I invite my clients to do, because everything I like to think of it as an experiment, meaning I'm not going to commit for life. I'm going to commit for a week. I'm going to see how I feel. If I like how I feel, I keep it. And if I don't, I try something else. And so it's literally testing, okay, I'm getting quality sleep. I'm feeling good. The data's supporting this. This feels good. I don't think I need more. But you can only know that through testing, right?
Right.
And that's why I like data.
I mean, talking data is like my love language. I love data. So how would you suggest tracking your sleep? I know you like the Oura Ring, right?
So the Oura Ring obviously is going to be the gold standard because it's measured up against like ECGs and EEGs, like all the different tests that you could do. It's validated against that. If you're like, okay, there's a lot of data on that, a Fitbit does actually a really good job. You can get a Fitbit Luxe on Amazon for like $90. For all the Apple Watchers out there, they're not accurate. The other thing you can do is if you were to track it and you're like, I'm not a tracker girl, what you could consider doing is writing down your stats. Just think of it like, it's like, what are the variables I'm measuring? What do I want to see as an outcome? How am I feeling? Because that's the most important part, right?
I do want to ask you, pre-show you were telling me something about coffee. And because I even have had my coffee here in the show, I am obsessed with coffee. Can you tell me a little bit about your hack or your thoughts around coffee first thing in the morning?
While we sleep, our brain clears out this chemical that is responsible for making us sleepy. When we wake up, we need a little bit longer to finish clearing it out. Now, the problem is when you have a cup of coffee when you wake up, it blunts that clear out response. But what happens is you start getting that rise off the caffeine. So you're like, I feel great. And then when the caffeine starts wearing off about 6 hours later, that sleepy chemical that you didn't clear out is still waiting there for you.
Yes.
And this results in that afternoon. And then what do? We have another cup of coffee because we got hit with the wave
here,
right? But this cup of coffee probably just happens to be in that weird sweet spot where it's starting to affect our sleep because it takes 6 hours for half of that coffee to clear out. So by the time we're heading to bed, we still got like 40% of that caffeine in our system, and caffeine directly blunts deep sleep. So that cup of coffee that you had in the afternoon is disrupting your deep sleep at night. It's not allowing your brain to refresh, recharge, or your body. So you wake up the next day feeling even more groggy. So you reach for the cup of coffee. It's a cycle that we get. So by just delaying that first cup of coffee an hour and a half, 2 hours after we wake up, it allows that sleepy chemical called adenosine to clear out.
Again, it goes back to the data. It's like, this is how it's affecting you and what it's doing. And you can almost then picture it and go, okay, well I can fix that then. That's easy. There's genuine truth in the fact that your business doesn't exist if you don't. Your business can't run well if you don't. And I just think this was so much fun. So Tanessa, thank you so much for being here. This was awesome.
Thank you for having me.